all things travel nursing. We will also be giving away 3 $25 Amazon gift cards to 3 lucky nurses who ask questions. So before I bring on Craig and Peter, I'll give you a little background about both of them. Craig is the director of recruitment. He plays a dual role. Not only does he act like the coach to the recruitment team, but he's also top recruiter. He also has his fingers on the pulse of the industry, and his knowledge base has been built over 13 years of being in the staffing industry. He's a straight shooter who believes in being 100% transparent in the way he conducts business and how the entire Go Healthcare staffing recruitment team conducts business. Peter is a recruitment manager. He, having a shared experience of moving and relocating to somewhere new is just one of the ways Peter finds ways to connect with his travel nurses. He's also a former sommelier and has a fondness for California's Napa Valley wines. With 3 kids and an expensive wine taste, Peter may just be the hardest working recruiter that they have at Go Health Staffing. So he'll be happy to recommend a great red or anywhere you want to go for a owner's contract. So now that you know a little bit more about Peter and Craig, let me bring them on so you can ask them all your travel nurse questions. Let's give it a little minute. There they are. Hi, guys.
Hey, Rachel.
Hey, Rachel. How you doing?
Good. All right. Well, I'll let you guys get to it and answer all those questions.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for the introduction, Peter.
Craig?
We're back here again for Facebook Live after our debut from last time a couple months back.
It's good to be back.
It is, man. It's exciting. There's been a lot of stuff that's happened between that moment and today, and preparation for the next one, and just really excited to connect and talk with a number of the other travelers that are out there in the marketplace. Are we back?
I'm back live. Are you back live, Craig?
I'm back live.
Fantastic. It's good to have you back, man. We had another earthquake here in Charlotte.
Oh, yeah. Good old technical difficulties. But, yeah, just excited to be back here, and really, there's been a lot of things happening over the past couple months, and just reflecting back here on 2019 as we come to the close here. Just a lot of great things happening here at Go Healthcare.
The desks have been busy all around this last couple weeks, so it's a mad rush to the new contract for 2020.
Without a doubt.
Yep.
So I just want to take a quick second. Rachel provided a great introduction for us, but I think it would be wise, because you can find those introductions verbatim on our website, and that tells you kind of who we are from a distance. But would love to just do a little bit of a deeper dive into who we are, the company themselves. And, just kind of put it out there, because there's a lot of nurses out there that have been in contact with us. And then there's a lot of nurses that haven't. And I think it's important to know, especially in this day and age, who you're doing business with, and making sure that you're comfortable with the people that are behind, the desk and the office here that are talking with you and providing you a lot of the great information. So Peter, why don't I kick it over to you, and you can tell a little bit about yourself, kind of what brought you to our company, and just a little bit of your backstory.
To be as brief as possible, I spent the last 15 years in the hospitality / restaurant cafe industry, and so customer service is definitely a forte of mine. And in that process of being in hospitality, I came across a guy named Craig Matajo. Just so happened to frequent my restaurant one evening with his beautiful wife, and was partaking in some, I think it was some wine education that we were providing that night, and I was the sommelier and the instructor for that course, and just struck up a kinship with Craig, kept in touch with him, and kind of reconnected back. I guess it's been just over a year ago, and called him up, and here we are today. Been with Craig for going on 13 months now, and it's been a great experience. I feel like the transition has been an interesting one, and I think the customer service aspect of it has really proved to help me quite a bit in this endeavor, just because it's really a customer service field that's really needed and is missing in healthcare staffing, to really take on the nurses and being there for them and understanding and listening to exactly what their needs are. That's probably the most important thing we do is listen to exactly what their needs are, and so we can fulfill them.
I agree. And I mean, just to speak to Peter's talents, I mean, going back to that, night of wine, I was either educated so much, or you just educated, me and my wife so much, we ended up buying a whole case of wine that night.
Yeah.
So we were very educated by the end of the night. So no, I mean, it's really been a pleasure to have Peter on the team. He brings a lot to the table regarding, the customer service that he does, just his drive, to see how he takes care of his travelers. I think is something that's extremely important. And there's a lot of recruiters in the marketplace. There's a lot of great recruiters in the marketplace. But that's something that, you can't really teach, and that's something that I've always been impressed with by him. Myself, we, have been with Go Healthcare for about 4.5 years. So since the day we, turned the lights on here, I was helping grow it from pretty much a ball of dust. And, my background is within travel nurse staffing. I've started in this business in 2006, working for another firm. And, from there, was with them for 10 years, decided to leave there and start with Go Healthcare Staffing, strictly because I wanted to be a part of something that was starting from ground zero and something that was able to, be nurtured and grown in the way that I thought that, a company should be ran and run, but also just the way that you treat the nurses and what I was really looking to do with my career. A challenge is something something that I've never really shied away from. And I think, it's been great to see where it's come from 4 years to today. It's really like night and day. So just really, kind of that's our backstory. I mean, as far as a company goes, I think some important things about us ultimately are, the company's a mid-sized firm. And we, try to take care of our customers. Our customers are our nurses, and that's where we put our focus into, and just making sure that we are as competitive as possible in the marketplace, and that we're providing a high level of service. If we pay high, but we provide bad service, that's only going to get you so far. If we, pay low and we provide great service, that's only going to get you so far. So we try to find a middle ground between those two things, and really just be an agency that people come back to time and time again. So I know this is a Q&A session here, so maybe we can, kind of switch to some of the questions that are starting to roll in here.
They're already starting to fire them at us, Craig.
They are. So why don't you tee up this first one, Peter? And looks like we got Nohemi that's chimed in asking if a BSN degree is required for travelers.
Yeah, I'll take that one. It's a good question. The BSN is definitely something that will put you a leg above a lot of other travelers that are out there. It's not required for traveling, but we do have some facilities out there that are requesting BSNs. It's usually not a requirement, but it's usually a request. If they have somebody with a BSN, they'd probably get a quicker look than somebody without. And you got one here from Mercedes, Craig. You want to field that one?
Sure. So the question is, does this company hire LPNs? We don't focus a lot of our business on LPNs. That's not to discount the profession. It's just ultimately it's not a specialty that we get a lot of requests for. It's very difficult for us to keep somebody employed with us in that particular specialty just because of the lack of needs. So the long and short answer to that, Mercedes, unfortunately, is we're probably not your best resource if you're looking for a travel agency that could keep you on contract as an LPN.
Yeah, and going back to what you were saying earlier, Craig, about us being a mid-size company, I like to use the term a lot that we're a boutique firm and that we're customized and we can move fast. We're very nimble about what we do. I think as we grow, that's something that we can develop and we can look into down the road. And I don't know about your desk, but my desk is completely filled with RNs right now, and I would love to be able to do more with LPNs down the road. So we just never know what a year brings. So let's take a look at things over the next year.
No, I would agree with you on that. I mean, that's definitely somewhere that, we've identified that, that we'd like to go. Within staffing, with any kind of business, you could do, one specialty really well, or you can do a whole bunch of specialties okay. Yeah. And through the years of staffing, that's kind of been my mentality, is that I want to be the best at what I do. And as an agency, I feel like that's where, we're aligned right now. And so to not do a disservice to one segment of our business, by bringing on something that we're not prepared for quite yet, that's kind of where we're at with our organization is, we're trying, we've identified what we're good at, and we want to perfect that and really make that the base work, the groundwork for exactly, the growth of the company.
Yeah. Hey, Craig, just while we're on the subject of the LPNs, also, can you talk a little bit about home health? Because I know we do get a lot of questions in regards to home health. So.
Yeah, sure thing. As far as home health goes, that's another area that we don't specialize a whole lot in. Our client base is really the acute care setting. And there's a couple reasons that are behind that. One, it's, the insurance that goes along with, staffing within the home health setting. I'll just say up front,
huge piece.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge piece. And that's something that we're, not set up for at this point in time. It's somewhere that we could definitely move to as our business grows, but we don't have the liability, structure that's in place right now to be able to take on, a home health contract. So that's, another area where we're not a nurse who does home health. We're probably not going to be your best resource.
Yep. I want to field this one, Craig. I'm going to throw this one out to you. What sets us apart from other agencies? I'm going to let you kind of start off on that. I know you've got your take, and I've got my take on that too.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, there's a lot of different parts in that, and we'll try to trim it down, to the top 2 or 3 that I feel like set us apart from the competition that's out there. But is really kind of an infinite type of thing where, we literally could sit here and talk for 30 minutes. So trust me, I'll try not to do that. But the things that I feel like always set us apart from another organization is the people. That's number one. I mean, the people that you deal with, I mean, at any agency, that's going to be, what makes or breaks, your experience with them. Nurses that I work with, when we're talking about, the travel nursing profession in general, and why should I come on with you? I could easily sit here and say, well, I've been doing this forever, and that's why you should come on with me, but that's not really a good reason. The dedication that I've got towards the travelers that I work with, the time commitment, I mean, the in office, the out of office, you have to have the trust that I'm working for you when you're at work or when you're asleep, because you work night shift. I have to be finding you contracts, and that's my job. The long and the short of it is, I have to be able to provide you, a level of service that, is superior than the next guy. They always say there's a sports analogy, and I'll probably mess it up because, I love sports, but I'm bad with analogies. The person, there's always somebody working harder than you, and my mentality as a recruiter has always been like, if I'm not putting in 100%, then the next guy is. And, the next recruiter is doing that. So if a nurse I'm working with, if they're going to get shoddy service from me and then they have taken a contract with another agency, I can't be surprised about that because I probably did things, not to my fullest potential, and that's really one thing, in my life, that's been in recruiting, that's been in any kind of a business, or anything outside of work. Like, I've always wanted to be the best that I can possibly be at something, and to me, that's something that drives me here. So to say what makes us apart, the people is the big thing. The other one, the size of our organization. Some people say, well, what, you're not as big as an AMN, or you're not as big as a cross country. I think that's a great thing. And the reason that I think that sets us apart, is ultimately because of one thing that you mentioned, being able to be nimble.
Yep.
We keep a low overhead. We pay our travelers, as max money as we possibly can.
More money
because
to
I
go to the
know
nurses. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, everybody who's a traveler, one big thing, that you hear time and time again. It's not the only thing, but it's people get into this for a financial gain. And
we're all nice. We're good looking guys here, Craig. Don't get me wrong, but they're in it for the money, not for us, right?
Well, it's a mix of both. But I mean, maybe not the looks of us, but it's a mix of the travel. It's a mix of the financial. It's a mix of growing your career. There's a lot of different things, but money, nobody works for free.
Yeah.
I mean, Peter, if I told you I wasn't going to pay you anything, would you come in here and work for us on a daily basis?
For you, Craig, I'd be here tomorrow.
That really makes my heart warm. And I really like that.
I want to just to touch on that nimble piece. One of the keys that we have is running smaller desks, running between 10 and 15 nurses at a time. We're able to get you subbed quickly. And I think that's the part of being nimble. That's the key to this nursing industry is when we have submissions, to be able to get your profile submitted over to the facility. We've seen it time and time and time again, where the first person submitted is the one who gets the job. And, as we're sitting here at this desk and, we don't have, 50 nurses that we're working with, it gives us the ability of being able to get them placed a lot quicker than some of these bigger agencies that are out there, because we do have our hands right on the pulse of what's going on. As long as we've got the profile built, and we'll get into kind of the application process and, what all that leads into that a little bit later. But if we've got the profile built, we can get it subbed. And I think that's one of the keys to our agency, is being able to get you subbed first. We've done it multiple times. Craig, I've seen you do it. My partner, Andre, behind me, he's great at it. And we just get them in first or second, and we try to get those interviews quickly.
Well, I agree, and I mean, that's a team effort. I mean, if I know you have Johnny Sue's looking for a position, in this specific area or at this specific rate within these 4 states, and I see it. I mean, it's not like, oh, well, Peter, I hope he sees it so he can get his nurse submitted. No, it's me running out there, to the pit, basically saying, hey, look, man, we've got this position right here. This is a great job for Johnny. Let's get him subbed. I mean, it just opened up 2 minutes ago. Let's rock and roll. And that's something, that you need at an agency. If your recruiter's not doing that for you, they're putting you at a disadvantage, because, they're not going to interview 10, 20 folks at a time. They're going to take maybe the first 2, and they're going to go to the person that they can get on the phone first, and the person that fits the bill.
I don't want to discount the fact that we are mid-sized to make it seem like we don't have the connections, Craig, because with the experience that you have, with the experience of people on our team like Jenny, with Randy, with Andre, that have been in this industry for so long, we've got connections that have been built through years and years and years with our partners, and we do have the ear and we have the pulse, and so we can get those nurses submitted a lot quicker, and at least have an ear to go back to on. So I think that's definitely, to kind of wind up the whole, what sets us apart. That's definitely our agency in a nutshell right there.
I would agree with you. So we got another question here. What is the hardest thing about being a travel nurse? And that's, to me, that's almost a loaded question, because there's a lot of things that could be challenging. I don't want to say the hardest thing, but that's the way the question reads. But I think what's the most challenging thing is probably a good way to put it. I don't know, you want to take that one, Peter?
Yeah. Hi, Lori. How are you today? I hope everything is going good in your world and where you're at. I think some of the bigger challenges are, it's always a challenge going into a new facility. From any travel nurse's perspective, I think it's part of the adventure of traveling. There's a little bit of anxiety all the time that you're going to a new facility. some nurses really thrive on that. Some nurses get a little bit anxious, but I think that's probably one of the bigger challenges. Some of the other challenges that are out there is housing. Housing can be a challenge. We've had definitely challenges in different markets. We as an agency, we will do everything in our power to assist with the housing efforts. Finding you affordable, good, safe lodging. It's something that we pay for the travel stipend. We don't provide housing, but we as an agency, that again, going back to the small boutique agency, that's our craft. We're going to make sure that our nurse is in a good place for a contract. I know we had a couple different nurses have some remote issues with where they were going to, and being able to find them, whether that be RV hookups or a reach out to the facility to talk to the nurse manager that's there in regards to what is available in that town for existing travel nurses. We'll do whatever we have to do to be able to find you lodging. So those are the top two that kind of come to my mind, is kind of the anxiety over the new contracts and getting into a new facility, and housing. Anything on your side, Craig?
Yeah, I think there's a few other things that really are challenging as well, and some of it goes back to where you're at in your career as a nurse, and where you're at as a traveler. Somebody who's been traveling for 8 years is probably going to answer this question a lot differently, than somebody who's done 2 assignments. So I think that's important to look at. I mean, one thing, personally, I've never worked as a traveler, but if somebody were to ask me this question, which, they are, what would I perceive to be something that would be super challenging, taking my personality, and something that I might have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, personally, I would think would be like the new kid on the block every 13 weeks. You're pretty much assimilating into a new contract, a new facility every 13 weeks. And people that have certain types of personalities that may be more outgoing, or more receptive to change, are going to be super successful in that type of environment, because they're going to go with the flow. Somebody who, just talking with a nurse yesterday, somebody who maybe doesn't make friends as quickly or as well, or maybe doesn't warm up to people that they don't know quite as well, very quickly, that could be a challenge. I'm not saying that's going to be something that will happen on every single contract, because there's a good number of nurses I work with where they do their work, and then they go home. And one of the good things about being a traveler, you kind of remove yourself from some of the politics. But if it were me, and somebody were to ask me that question when I was a traveler, personally, sometimes it takes me a little bit of time to warm up to people, and before, I come out of my shell and feel super comfortable with folks, so I think that ultimately, might be something that's tough. The other thing that I think is challenging, is also the lack of orientation sometimes within the facilities. A nurse I was speaking with yesterday at length, I asked her, so at your, position as an L&D nurse in Pittsburgh, how long was your orientation process as a new nurse? She said, well, it was 4 months long. So going into, a travel position, the contracts are 3 months long. So your orientation is obviously
maybe a day.
Yeah, maybe a day, maybe a week. Mixed with some classroom stuff, going through OSHA regulations and things like that, and then
updating EMR systems.
Yeah, but the unit orientation is going to be pretty abbreviated. So to me, I think that would be a hard thing. Going in as a nurse, you have to be confident with your skills to be able to say, I'm going to step in here, I'm going to hit the ground running. I'm open-minded. I'm going to make myself available to ask questions and for people to ask questions to me, but ultimately rolling into that could definitely be a challenge.
Thanks for the question, Lori. Got another one in regards to benefits. You want to talk a little bit about our benefits? Eligible day one, Mr. Matajo?
They sure are. Benefit-wise, I'd put our benefits up against anybody. We've got day one benefits. We work with Cigna. We've got, and let me kind of back up real quick. Our insurance benefits, they're a la carte. So a nurse comes to us and they don't need benefits, I'm putting more cash in your pocket.
Absolutely.
If you need benefits, they start day one. We work with Cigna. We've got 3 different plans. If you need one, or if you do need health insurance, we have one plan where we cover 100% of the premiums.
No cost.
No cost to you. If you want to buy up, to additional coverage, we have those options as well. We've got dental, we've got vision, we've got 401k. For nurses that are on contracts with us, we reimburse for all credentials. If you're an ER nurse and you've got, the whole gamut of the credentials, it costs a lot to maintain those. As a full-time nurse, if you're on contract, or if you're a permanent employee at the hospital's picking up the tab for that. When you jump into the travel world, I mean, you should be finding an agency that covers that stuff as well, because that stuff, to do your job. And I mean, I've always thought of if it's required to do my job, then the agency ought to be helping me, because we're all in this together. So we cover all the credentials. I know, Peter, you had a nurse, that you placed down in Florida, an L&D nurse. We had to quickly find a stable class, and we got her into that. We covered the cost for that. Those classes aren't cheap.
Nope.
Any kind of credentialing cost up front, we send you to LabCorp, we knock it out. We don't nickel and dime you, MMR shots, TB, all of that stuff. I mean, that's stuff that we as an agency expect, that people are not going to have a lot of times. And so that's a cost that we burden. We pay weekly. We do the tax-free stipends. Everything is done online in terms of pay stubs. We're available 24/7. Amber is our credentialing person. I don't, if anybody's ever worked with her, I'm sure they, can kind of speak to her dedication. I mean, I don't think she stops working, ever. I mean,
nope.
It could be Christmas morning and you have a, question about your, MMR shot, and there's a good chance she's probably going to answer the phone for you.
She will.
And the same for all of us,
Yep.
But I mean, she is extremely dedicated. One thing that's super important to us here at Go Healthcare, is going from, point A, you've just had the offer, to point Z, now you're starting the position. The smoothness of that process in between can really make or break the perception that you have of our agency. And Amber does just a smash up job of, making sure that people, one, I mean, we're moving in that process correctly, but two, we're also, doing it in a pleasant form and fashion, to make sure that we're not wasting your time, because that's the only thing we can't get back in life. Peter, if you waste my time, I can't get that back. So
we don't want to waste nurses' time, Craig. That's definitely something that we pride ourselves on, is doing whatever we can to help them out in the whole process. Just a statement came in, Craig, circling back to having a hard time getting started on contracts. Starla, I just wanted to mention, hi Starla, I hope everything is well out there. She's just basically making a statement that she's not there to make friends. It's definitely not wrong to just go in, do your job, and get through the contract. I think that makes you a better nurse. Everybody has a different way of doing things, and to Starla's point, I think that is a no nonsense way of going about the business to get you in there, get you in the door. And that's a great selling point, Craig, is we go to the hiring source and basically just tell them this is just a no-nonsense nurse, wants to go in, do her job, clock in, clock out, and make sure her patients are taken care of. And I thank you for that comment there, Starla.
No, I mean, that's a really great point. And, yep. The problem with these live events, and as we field questions, not everybody is in the same box. Right now, me and Peter are in boxes, on this page, but yep. Not everybody is in, the same situation, and there's plenty of nurses that we work with, where you go in, you do your job, you go home, because you want to stay out of the, the politics, and I don't think it's the same thing, to make friends, but it's also, I mean, you have to make allies on the unit. I mean, there can easily be somebody, who's there not looking at, out for your best interest, or, if you rub everybody the wrong way when you go in there, you're not going to have any allies, and I've seen it, on at least more than one occasion, probably in the last 12 months, to where something has snowballed into kind of a stick of dynamite and blew up on a nurse because, they didn't have the allies that they might have had on that unit. And, I mean, somebody a long time ago told me, that nurses on the floor from time to time, sometimes eat their own, And I mean, I think that could be in any walk of life, so to say that it's wrong thinking to think that you could just do your job and go home. I mean, you totally can. It's just something as a challenging piece, what I felt would be challenging, and then also somebody coming into that environment, there's a gray area between, being too friendly, being not friendly enough. You're trying to, hold the middle road, because ultimately, you don't want to rock the boat.
Craig, we got a question in regards to do we work with nurses with hits on their record? And I actually just got this question last night. I had a nurse contact me in regards to a hit on her license and ask me that question, and we absolutely do. We look at every situation independently. Obviously, my first question is going to be, what is the hit for? What was the reason for the hit that came up on your license? How long ago was it? And for the most part, there are things that come up. There are second chances for a lot of people. From a clinical standpoint, our nurses, they grow over time, become better nurses, and so maybe an assignment, back 2009, they just got overwhelmed with the patient and couldn't handle the situation right clinically. For some reason, did something wrong, and a hit occurs. Are we going to say, Craig, that we're never going to work with that nurse again? That's that. For me, it's there's always a second chance to prove that they've gotten better. This particular instance that I got the text on last night, Craig, had to do with diversion, where the drugs are supposed to be going to one patient and they're diverted to a different place. And that's one of those cases where it's really, really tricky. When we start to get into medications, that's where we start to really have problems placing nurses, is on things like the dispensing of medications to where they're not supposed to go. So I don't know if you had anything further on that, or that answers that in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'd like to throw out there, because every agency is going to handle this a little bit differently. The first thing I'd like to put out there is that me and Peter are not nurses. We're recruiters. And so a hit that's on your record.
Seen Craig nurse a beer before, but that's about it.
Well, I don't even know if you'll see that. But if there's ever an instance where we, don't know something that's clinical in nature, our clinical coordinator, who's an ex-traveler, that works for us, who handles any kind of clinical issue, that may be on assignment, or any kind of question like this. We refer to him to provide some guidance on, what he feels like is our best course of action here. I've seen, through the work that I've done with him, going to nurses and providing him the information based off somebody's background, there seems to be, a top 2, 3, they're almost non-negotiables. I mean, you have to understand, if there's one of those where there's like a medication diversion, some type of egregious patient safety type of issue, like, I've got to put that information on your file when I'm sending it over. The last thing we want is you to be excited about a job, them excited about you, and then we get to the point where now they find out about your background, and it just all falls apart at the end there. So we put that on there. I mean, in my experience, a lot of times hospitals are shying away from specific things. So if there's some type of egregious patient, safety type of error, that happened, it may have been 20 years ago. Unfortunately, sometimes they're not going to move on you. It may take 10, 20, 30 times to submit you before we find that hospital to say, yes, we'll go ahead and move forward. We may never find that hospital, so I think it goes back to, if there's some kind of, gray area where we don't know that answer, because we won't know them all, we go to Thad and we have him analyze the paperwork. We'll have him get on a call with you. You can make your case and make sure, that everybody is on the same page before we move forward. The last thing I want to do is tell you, hey, we can get you a job, and then we start submitting you, and we don't get any interviews, and it's just been a big waste of your time, because I don't think anybody wants that.
Yep.
So,
Craig, how about I throw this one your way? How are stipends handed out?
So stipends are paid on a weekly basis. So anywhere that you're looking at a position at, it will be kind of set aside on the GSA schedule. So if we're looking at, a job in Charlotte, which is where we're located at, it's going to be X amount of dollars per week for meals, X amount of dollars, a week per housing. And it's set across that for the entire country. We could put a link on, the comment feed here to the GSA site so everybody could take a look where those numbers actually come from, because I think it's important. If you're looking at contracts, that's where they're going. That's where the recruiters are going to pull those numbers from.
Yes, to that point too, Craig. I mean, $1,800 a week in a market like Atlanta, Georgia, it may not be the same as $1,800 a week in a market like Redding, California, just because of the stipend amount.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, that's completely true. I mean, those stipend amounts could be different. The taxable amount that you're getting on those two packages may be different.
Yep.
The take-home amounts ultimately are going to be effective. When we're handing out the stipends, we're going by the GSA guidelines. We don't want to go above those. Sometimes we can't always go to the max of those. If there's a hospital here in Charlotte, there's two that are well known. If they're paying, $60 an hour for a med surg nurse to come in, I could tell you right up front, that to maintain a decent taxable wage, and our threshold that we do as an agency, I'm not going to be able to pay you all the tax-free stipends because there's just not enough money in the budget, to really make it, work. The only way that you'd be able to do that is if you're paying paying a nurse something that's so far, below an adequate wage. I'm talking $10 an hour, which that's never advisable, because that's going to lead to a couple knocks on the door from Mr. IRS saying, hey, you know what? Let's take a look at your tax returns. So that's something. That's how they're paid out, though. They're paid out on a weekly basis. They are prorated. So if their week goes by where you work 12 hours, the stipends, the housing and the meals are prorated based off of the amount of hours that you work. So that's something to think about as well. When you're looking at the overall package, somebody says, well, this job's paying $1,800, $1,000 of it's coming to you tax-free. That's based off of you working 36 hours per week. And that's important to know, because a lot of times people going in, to travel nursing, they're going to say, well, I didn't get my $1,000 this week, and I only worked 12 hours. Well, the reason that you didn't is because, the agencies budget the assignments based off how many hours you're going to work, based off of how, what that bill rate is per hour.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's what maintains the integrity of all the financials of, the recruiter's quote, is assuming that you're going to work all those hours. So that's why that piece is prorated. And I know that's a hot, topic in the industry, or does the agency pay the full stipends on the orientation weeks? What if the unit's closed? And those are all real valid questions, that we could definitely address for you. But those are, live time things, that are out there in the marketplace that are hot button topics.
Yeah, Craig, I know before time gets away from us, we got about 20 minutes left here. I think one of the more important things that we wanted to kind of talk about today is the application process and what we can do to try and expedite and speed that along for our nurses that want to come with Go Healthcare Staffing. I think it's one of the bigger questions that we get on a day-to-day basis is switching agencies, having a second or third or sometimes fourth agency, and how difficult that can be for some nurses. A lot of nurses can manage it and some nurses can't. We just basically want to kind of, talk about that process a little bit in regards to, again, us being nimble, us being able to help out and do what we can. And in a nutshell, what we're looking at from an application process is fairly simple. Name, address, driver's license, social security number, date of birth. That kind of gets us started. And that's also been a topic of discussion, is why we're having to ask for driver's license and social security number prior to nurses actually being hired. It's being asked a lot of us from a lot more hospitals to cross-reference to make sure that you're not a previous traveler within their system that has worked there, and to kind of just clarify that point. So we don't ask for the actual Social Security card until you're actually hired, but we need that to kind of get you into the systems because the hospitals are asking us for it. But those are the main things that we need to quickly get into an application process. A good resume would always help us. The things that are needed on the resume is the hospital experience, not agency experience, so that we can actually quickly go through the application to determine exactly, what size hospital you were in, what kind of unit you were in, to help us kind of ascertain that position for you, so we can quickly craft our own profile for you. But time frame wise, what we're looking at really on the application is, I would say, somewhere about 30 to 40 minutes for the most part, and that's mainly the skills checklist. That's the main thing that we need, is to have that skills checklist done, which every hospital requires, and that's about a half-hour long process to get that knocked out. And for every specialty that we're looking at, we're going to need a different skills checklist. So depending on how many specialties our nurses are in, that could take a little bit more time. But to get you rolling quickly, it's usually about a 30-minute process to do a skills checklist, do about a 10-minute quick application, a submittal of your resume, and then we can kind of start by crafting the perfect profile for you to actually get submitted. So your input is going to be very, very limited from an application standpoint with Go Healthcare Staffing. We're going to take a lot of that brunt off of the plate for you and do it ourselves. Now, does that mean we're spending a half hour doing it? No, it's probably going to take us 3 to 4 hours for us to craft our profile for you, to get you into the position that you want to be in. But for the most part, that's kind of what we're looking for in the application process. Do you want to add anything to that, Craig?
Yeah, I would say, the most important thing that I try to stress with our application process, nurse that I'll talk to today, and probably next week, and I'll probably have multiple more conversations that end, and begin like this, is that I already work with an agency. I don't want to sign up for anybody else. And I totally understand that. I don't know if I'd want to either if I had, 800 people calling me on a daily basis, because at the end of the day, they probably all start to sound the same, especially over a phone or a voicemail. However, what I'd like to say is that our process, I try to make it super easy. We could sit here and brand it a 30-minute application. A resume of a quality nurse, a quality resume is such a huge step in the process of saving you time. I'm working with a nurse right now, and he sent me his resume the other day, and I've got it here in front of me, and he's literally, has probably 20 assignments on here, but he's got the dates, he's got the bed size of the hospital, he's got the locations, he's got the agencies, he's got everything. That makes my job that much easier, and it makes your life that much easier, because instead of me having you go into some system, plug in all these work entries, which, I wouldn't expect anybody to do, because that's my job. But by having that, it makes your life so much more easier, that all I have to do is say, hey, send me 2 names, send me numbers, and we need references, that are recent, and then do the checklist. And that's really, the extent of what I need in order to get him submitted, or anybody submitted. So that's a key piece of the puzzle. When somebody comes and they don't have that information really handy, yes, it's going to be a lot of work, because if you've worked 20 contracts and you don't have them written down anywhere, yeah, I wouldn't want to get in the system and do that either, because that's going to take me, probably a good 2 hours to go through the whole thing. So, again, a lot depends on, the candidate that we're talking with, but it's not unheard of for just to sit here on the phone, and just go through work history, and dates, and put something together. We don't need something that's been crafted by, the resume gods or anything like that. We're here to help you kind of get through that process quicker. And we talked about time a lot during this piece, and I'll tell nurses this all the time, that, like, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. So, like, it does me no good to have somebody go in and fill out a whole bunch of paperwork, if I don't even know if I've got a position for you, or if I don't, ever get positions for you. These jobs are so cyclical. Like what I might have today for you, Peter, may be closed tomorrow. or I talked to you today and you're looking for this type of job. Well, that job's not open today, but it's open tomorrow. So like it's the whole chicken and the egg type of thing. That's why we try to make your life so much easier, as it relates to that piece. We don't have you go through competency testing on the front end. We don't have you, go through credentialing work on the front end. I mean, you literally do a skills checklist. If you can provide us a resume, fantastic. We're willing to go over the phone. You can just literally email us names of hospitals, dates, how many beds there are, and I mean, we'll run with it from there. If there's questions, gaps in employment, things like that, then obviously we're going to come back to you and ask you about it, because we want to make sure, that we have a full story. And, if a hospital asks us questions about it, we've got to be able to respond to them.
Absolutely.
But literally, I mean, as far as our application process, from 4 years ago, it was basically go into this portal, and when it's done, then we'll talk to you. To now, it is very much, I'm trying to cater to you, and my team's trying to cater to you to make sure that your life is as easy as possible as it relates to signing up with our organization. I hope that explains the application process a little bit. I mean, we send you a link. You go in there, you create the login, it'll take you right to the checklist. An email or a resume can be emailed to the recruiter. It can also be attached in the system. But it's super, user-friendly process that, I mean, we try to make it as user-friendly as possible. It might not be a massage, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, and to that point, Craig, we definitely don't want to waste anybody's time in doing this, but we get jobs so often that we do have our finger on the pulse of seeing what's coming in a lot of the times, and we can forecast kind of what's coming and get an idea based on what has happened in the past. And so there are some times where the job may not be available, where we would recommend that you go ahead and do the process, even though we don't have the job. So 9 times out of 10, we're probably going to say, no, let's hold on and not do that. But when we see it's in an area that we frequently get jobs, we might have you do that and kind of roll the dice a little bit. But we're going to have that discussion with you prior to you actually doing that, because we want you to feel comfortable with being able to spend that time in doing so. But we're going to do everything we can to support you. I just want to, Starla asked a question about CNAs, and this kind of goes also back to the whole LPN question. There's definitely needs for CNAs out there. We're just, Starla, we're just not at a point at this time with our agency growth-wise where we're doing anything with CNAs with LPNs at this point in time.
We got another question that's here. Hey guys, can you answer this question? What are some of the questions I should ask during an interview, or what are some questions that will be asked of me? And that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, if there's any question I love that question. Because there's so many different things that are here. And I mean, the interview process for the travel jobs have changed in some aspects, and other aspects are still doing the same old thing. Depending on where you go and depending what type of software has been sold to a hospital or sold to a staffing firm that now implements it, there's a lot of different things.
Yep.
So maybe we started looking, at the interview process first. And Peter, I'll kind of touch on this for 2 minutes,
Yep.
and then maybe you can kind of dive into some of the questions.
Yep.
But the interview process for travelers, I mean, it's not face-to-face, it's over the phone, or sometimes it's even automated on a website now. So, I mean, let's just kind of discuss how that is. Back in the day, it was, let me submit your file to the manager. Manager's going to pick up the phone, they're going to call you, they're going to do the interview. Sounds good. We shake hands over the phone. Sounds like I can do it for 13 weeks, and we're going to make an offer for you. Personally, that's what I like, because the nurse can talk to the manager. The nurse can, ask questions of the manager, before any kind of offer comes through. You can really kind of assess, what's going on in that particular unit and what you're going to be doing. So that's kind of the old school way, and it's still happening today. I don't want to say it's not happening. I mean, probably 80% of the time that's still what's happening. Yep. But the other piece of it is, these automated interviews. Agencies submit you to a particular job. Next thing you know, you get an email, prompting you to go to a website where they're going to have you record a bunch of stuff, and a bunch of questions, and you're going to answer them based off of that, and that's going to go over to the hiring manager, or that's going to be over to a clinical group that's critiquing those answers, and then kind of moving on there. So there's kind of a whole different set of challenges in that question, because one, you can't even ask questions. The other one, you can ask all the questions that you want. So Peter, I'll kind of lay that on the the table for you, maybe to see how you approach those two different scenarios, because I think it's important to figure out how you do approach both of those, because they are very different.
Yeah, and I could actually throw another scenario at you too, and that's the auto offer, because we had one of those in the last month come up in California. And how do you deal with that when you don't even have an opportunity to speak with the manager? Well, it really is us having to work back through our partners to make sure that your questions do get answered. We're not gonna want to put a contract in front of you until you're comfortable in actually signing something. And to be able to answer the questions that you have, we will make it a priority to make sure somebody is in touch with you to answer whatever question that is that you might have. But I think going back to the interview process, I think you touched on it, Craig. It's you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. You're asking questions of them about their facility. If they're going to be 100% truthful with you all the time, we don't know. Are they going to kind of gloss over kind of what their conditions are in their hospital at this point in time? They might. The bottom line is you want to ask those questions though. What's going on in your facility today? How many nurses do you have? What's your patient ratio like? Adversely, they may be asking you the same question. What are you used to as far as patient ratio? Is it something that you're going to be able to handle the load that we're going to put on you? They just want to make sure they've got the right nurse for the job, and adversely, you want to make sure that you've got the right hospital that's going to fit your needs. And I think questioning them as well as them questioning you is exactly what we're looking for. Is that a little bit of Q&A back and forth? So.
No, I would agree with you. Yep. That's really, a key piece. I think of everything that you just said. As an agency, we're not comfortable putting a contract together for you for a job that you're not comfortable with. That's probably the biggest waste of time ever. Because I'm going to write it up, I'm going to waste my time. I'm going to put it in front of you. You're not going to accept it because you don't know all the answers, and then we're just going back and forth. So time and time again, have I seen that happen, with recruiters, here previously? That's kind of putting the cart in front of the horse, and that's not really the correct route to go about this. If there's any ever questions that we have a nurse that's done one of the auto interviews or in one of the, the auto offer type of situations, it's so important to figure out exactly what's really going on there. A great example is here in North Carolina. We work with a group of hospitals, Novant, which they're well known throughout the the Carolinas here, and ultimately they do the auto offers. They do the automated interview, they do the auto offer. My nurse that I'd submitted there, up in Winston-Salem, she just got the auto offer. And everybody's all happy. We got an offer. Fantastic. She comes back to me and says, I've never even spoke with anybody. I don't know what I'm walking into. I said that's a perfectly fair question, and a fair situation. And so to us, we go back, hey, our nurse would like to talk with the manager before she makes a decision here. If that's too much to ask of a hospital that wants to hire a traveler, like if they don't have the time to do that, then I think that tells you everything that you need to know about going to work there on a contract. Is that there's so much unknown going into something like that, that ultimately, personally, it doesn't make me feel comfortable as a recruiter. A lot of times it's not making our nurses feel comfortable either, so we can navigate those jobs, but sometimes it takes just a little bit of extra navigation in order to get to the point where everybody's comfortable.
Yeah, and a lot of times, through that process, Craig, we've submitted the nurse with, their time off request that they need on an assignment. Whether they're looking for a 2-day block, 3-day block, whatever that might be for a facility, we've kind of gotten a little bit of the groundwork out of the way. But essentially, if you need to talk to somebody, we're going to support you in that. We're going to put somebody in touch with you.
Yeah, no, I think that's the biggest thing. No. One of the things I wanted to get back to, so we missed a question up here from Kristen. She asked if we offered sick time or PTO. Now, Kristen, currently those are not two things that we have, that we put on a benefit sheet and put that in front of the nurses. And I'll tell you why. It's not because it's, we don't want to offer sick time or PTO. The best way for me to explain it is kind of the bonus scenario. Somebody asked if we offer a sign-on bonus. Well, if we offer a sign-on bonus, that's money that's coming from somewhere. Like, that's me taking our $60 bill rate up here, taking $2 an hour, wrapping it up, putting a bow on it, calling it a bonus, just for the sole fact that.
I think we may have just lost Craig for a second. Next question that actually came up. After a recruiter submits me for a job, how long should you wait for a call? I think it's different on a lot of different situations. I think we may have lost Craig for a brief moment, but I'm going to field this one. So it depends on our partner that we're working with. It depends on a lot of different factors, as a matter of fact. So what we're looking at is what the needs are in the facility. I think that's part of the process. If the hospital is in a situation where they need, multiple nurses because we're looking at right now, flu season is coming upon us, and we're needing to ramp up our hiring for that season. We're gonna essentially make sure that we're going to have 6 to 8 nurses hired. Well, they're probably going to hire a lot quicker for a need like that versus looking a week to 2 down the road for what their needs might be for just missing one nurse to fill in some shifts. As a standard rule, I think what we're looking at is a probably 24 to 48 hour long period. We've got to get your application submitted through the portal, through our MSP partners, and with that, we basically wind up having to wait for them to assess your skills. Craig's back with us.
Bingo.
Hey, Craig, welcome back.
Thanks.
Craig, we're talking about the time that it takes to kind of wait on an interview, and us hearing back from an MSP partner and such. And so, 24, 48 hours. So for them to review the process, for them to approve it, get it over to the facility, to the hiring source that's there. In some cases, the MSP may be making the decision for the hospital. And so, Craig, man, we've been all over the board with this one, man. I've had a nurse submitted before that's gotten an offer within 30 minutes of actually being submitted. I've also, on the flip side of that, had to wait 30 days to get an interview. So it literally is all over the board, but a 24 to 48 hour rule is kind of what we're looking at.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably pretty accurate. I apologize. The computer kind of went kaput on me in the middle of here. So
it happens.
I did not take a nap, I guarantee you. But as far as that question goes, I mean, the rule of thumb is if they're not moving within 48 hours, I mean, they may still call you, but it's time for us to look at other options, because ultimately, I mean, either they're still reviewing files or they're just moving so slow. They're not real motivated to fill the job. Maybe the manager's out. There could be a number of things. And a lot of times we might not be privy to all of that info, depending on the particular client that we're working with. So a rule of thumb is if we haven't had feedback in 48 hours, let's look at some options. What are the plan Bs? What are the plan Cs? So that way we can, just spread your file around, because our goal is to get you an interview. If we can't get you an interview, I mean, we're pretty much of zero use to you. So
we don't like being of zero use.
Yeah, man, we don't want to be a bunch of zeros.
No.
And that's, kind of what happens when we can't get you an interview, So, I mean, if I'm striking out on one spot, I'm I'm coming back to you with another place. And you may shoot it down. You might say, let's go. Ultimately, it's my job to put those options in front of you because you might not know what's out there. And so if I just wait around for you asking me to, submit you here, submit you there may be opportunities that are perfect for you that we're not really exploring. So that's a good rule of thumb, though, I would say 48 hours.
I know we're getting kind of towards the end of things here, Craig, and I just, anybody that's got any questions, obviously our link has been put up there. Our phone number has been put up there, texting or calling to 844-966-8773. I'll be more than happy to field your questions after this session is over. Obviously, this session is going to play on for a lot of you nurses who are working now, who want to view it later and want to come back to us later with questions. We'd be more than happy to field those questions for you at a time that's convenient for you.
Yeah, and I would suggest too, if there's any topics that we did not cover that somebody would think would be beneficial for next time, I mean, please post those on the chat so that way we know kind of how to cater. If there's any feedback. I mean, we're obviously we're not gurus of this, so ultimately, I mean, this is our second crack.
We are good.
Well, we'll give ourselves a small pat on the back. But if there's any feedback that any nurses can provide for us, I mean, please do. I mean, we want to be. Yeah, I mean, we want to be able to give the most info that we can and maximize our time and maximize your time as well. So if there's any feedback that anybody can provide, good, bad, ugly, send it our way. There might be a lot of ugly feedback, but
no way. No way. You guys did awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. For the nurses that asked questions, we'll be going through it tonight and then messaging you, messaging the winners. So thank you guys again so much for doing this, taking the time out of your day and getting on here and answering all these questions. So thanks, guys.
Always a pleasure, Rachel.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one.